Welcome to the Pro Tips video series designed to arm biology learners with background knowledge needed to kick butt during upcoming lessons. Students are encouraged to watch these tutorials before attending lecture on the topic and rewatch them while studying. I'm Professor Workman, and today's Pro Tips introduce chromosomes. Our first key term related to chromosomes is DNA, which is the general term for any molecule made up of deoxyribonucleic acid building blocks. It is the genetic information of cells. We inherit these molecules from our biological parents and pass them on to our children. In this image, you see 1, 2, 3 pieces of DNA. They look like twisted ladders. Each of these separate ribbons of DNA is organized into a molecule called a chromosome. The word chromosome refers to a single molecule of DNA, which happens to be organized with the help of proteins. DNA is typically a long, ribbon-like, stringy thing, and a cell could have a bunch of pieces of DNA ribbons. So to prevent them from getting tangled and damaged, the protein parts of a chromosome serve a function similar to these cord ties. They help keep the DNA coiled. These proteins are called histones. The DNA part of the chromosome has its own name too, which is chromatin. Chromatin would be a complete mess without its histones. Chromosomes come in a variety of shapes, depending on the type of organism and the stage of the cell's life cycle. In eukaryotes, like humans, chromosomes are linear, meaning their shape is a line. In a typical human cell, there are 46 of these lines of DNA. Some are long, some are short, and it's true that the shorter ones have less DNA. Sometimes a chromosome looks like an X because the DNA has copied itself. When this is going on, the original and the copy are still chemically bonded here, where it looks like the chromosome is wearing a belt. In prokaryotes, like bacteria, each cell has one circular chromosome. You can see here that the twisted ladder has no beginning or end. It's shaped more like a rubber band than a ribbon. Descriptive words for each of these chromosome shapes include linear, duplicated, and circular. Here is an opportunity to check your understanding. This is a happy little bacterial cell. How many chromosomes do you see inside this cell? The answer is just one. It looks like a rubber band that's kind of tangled on itself, so this is a single circular chromosome. How about in this cell? How many chromosomes do you see? Here the answer is 4, because there are 4 discrete pieces of DNA. Now I'm being tricky. Here's the same cell, but you'll notice I covered up half of the chromosomes from the previous. And so now we have, instead of X-shaped chromosomes, linear ones. How many chromosomes are in this cell? The answer is still 4. While these two cells differ in the total amount of DNA that they contain, they have the same number of chromosomes. So the one on the right has half as much DNA, but the same number of chromosomes. Here is a photograph of real cells taken through a microscope. Each light purple bubble is a cell, and the dark purple areas are chromosomes. Notably, all of these cells are genetically identical to each other. They are clones. This means they have the same number of chromosomes. But you can see that each cell looks a little different. This is because each cell is at a different stage of life. Chromosomes are only visible at this level of magnification during certain stages of the cell life cycle, and it's often when they are on the move. Here in this circle cell, You can see chromosomes in motion. They look to me like bicycle streamers trailing in the wind as they are pulled toward opposite ends of their cell. And that's what's beginning to take place in this cell as well. Here's a cleaned up version of this image again, and you'll notice that in most of the cells, we really cannot easily distinguish separate chromosomes, like in this circled cell here. But this is actually how the DNA molecule typically looks throughout most of the cell's life. We see it in that cell, we see it in this cell at the bottom, and in these others. In these cells, the DNA looks messy. But this is when it's getting stuff done. In this messy state, the DNA molecule is able to encode RNA, maybe it's making a copy of itself, it's doing its DNA thing. So it's normal when looking at cells through a microscope in your biology lab class if most of the cells don't show distinct chromosomes. In summary, you learned in this tutorial that DNA is the general term for any molecule made up of deoxyribonucleic acid building blocks, and that this molecule contains the genetic information of cells. You also learned that the key term chromosome refers to a discrete piece of DNA, just one molecule. But chromosomes actually include two parts. The DNA part itself is called chromatin, and the proteins that help the DNA coil are called histones. You learned that chromosomes come in different shapes depending on the type of organism and the stage of life that the cell happens to be in. Finally, you saw what chromosomes look like in a microscope. Sometimes you can distinguish clear separation between them, but typically they look like a jumbled mess because that's when they're getting stuff done. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, you might consider watching other videos in the series. Here's my contact information, and I always welcome any feedback. mworkman@pima.edu. Good luck in your biology journey.